Hey everyone, welcome back to Robotics. Today we'll have our second lecture talking about position and rotation. To explain why these concepts are so important, I want to show you a video. And in this video, we've got a panda robot arm that's picking up different objects and putting them in a bucket. The robot needs to figure out where the objects are in space, i.e. what is their position. And the robot also needs to figure out the correct orientation for its gripper in order to grasp those objects. Here you've got an example with the robot trying to pick up a cup. It notices the mug and it wants to pick up that mug and has to change its orientation so it can grasp correctly along the handle, pick that up, and then place it at the goal. So it's a really basic task, right? Just picking and placing objects. But in order to do it correctly, the robot needs to understand the position and the rotation of these different objects in space. So that really motivates today's lecture, but we'll start introducing these different concepts. I'll start off by explaining what is a coordinate frame. And then using that coordinate frame, or multiple coordinate frames, we can start to think about position and rotation of rigid bodies. So let's get started. What is a coordinate frame? Well, a coordinate frame really has two main components. The first is its origin. Now, an origin is just a point in space. Attached to that origin are going to be the axes of the coordinate frame. Think about this as x and y, or x, y, z axes for your coordinate frame. There are a couple of rules that the axes need to follow in order for this to be a valid coordinate frame. First, the axes must be orthonormal. And really that's two rules in one. It means that each individual axis is a unit vector. So my x, y, and z axes are each unit vectors. Orthonormal also means that the different axes are orthogonal to one another. So x is orthogonal to y, is orthogonal to z. Now, a hidden rule that's kind of appended to these valid coordinate frames is they must follow the right-hand rule. And you can use this, as the name suggests, with your own right hand. So to make sure that a coordinate frame is correctly defined, take your right hand, align your index finger with the x-axis of whatever coordinate frame you're interested in, your middle finger with the y-axis, again, of whatever coordinate frame you want, and then again, similarly with the z-axis. If you can do this, like you can in this drawing, great, you've got a valid coordinate frame. If you have to kind of invert one of your fingers or do something weird like that, it's not working, that means you've got a left-handed coordinate frame. It's not correctly defined for what we need in robotics. So coordinate frames, they've got an origin. They've got these axes, x, y, and z, or x and y attached to the origin. The axes are unit vectors, they're orthogonal, and they follow the right-hand rule. So there's a lot of rules involved for these coordinate frames. But once we have them, we can use them to think about position and rotation. And the way we do that is we attach these different coordinate frames, again, kind of in our imagination, we attach them to objects. So if you think about the last lecture, we can attach a coordinate frame to each link of our robot arm. Maybe we attach another coordinate frame to the end effector of that robot arm, and we attach a coordinate frame to the object that we're interested in. So now, in order to figure out where that object is in space, we can think about the differences between these coordinate frames. We can think about the differences between these coordinate frames, both in terms of position and in terms of orientation. Let me give you an example of that concept. So here I've got two different coordinate frames. I've attached this coordinate frame, I called it H for human. That's kind of attached and it's going to move with wherever the human goes. You can imagine that this coordinate frame goes with them. And then I've attached this other coordinate frame R to the robot. So wherever the drone goes, that coordinate frame is going to go with the drone. And I've used these subscripts to kind of label the axes. So you can tell the difference between X, Y, and Z for the human, and then X, Y, and Z for the robot. So I've got these two different coordinate frames in space, and I want to start to think about position and rotation. Let's break this down and start off by just thinking about what is the position of the robot relative to the human. To do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vector. The vector is going to start off at point H, the origin of the human's coordinate frame, and it's going to go to point R, the origin of the robot's coordinate frame. Because we're in a three-dimensional space here, this vector is going to have three components, x, y, and z components. If you were in a 2D world, like let's say you're moving on top of a table or some other planar space, then your position vector will only have two components, x and y. But in general for robotics, we're usually in this three-dimensional world, so our position vectors usually have x, y, and z. Let me talk a little bit about the notation here. I've written HR because I start off at point H and I move to point R. So this is telling you the beginning and end of the vector. And then I've written this subscript H, and that means I'm defining this vector in the human's coordinate frame. So in order to write these units, 7, 2, and 0, I'm writing them with the x, y, and z axes of the human in mind. So if I look at this x-axis, let's say it's 7 units to the right, and that's how I got 7. Along the y-axis, this point is 2 units up, that's how I got the 2. So in general, we're going to use this notation A, B, C, where A is the start, B is the end, and then C is your frame of reference. C could be A, could be B, could be some other coordinate frame entirely, but you use this notation to fully represent a position in space. So position, it's the difference between these two different origins. Next, I want to think about rotation and how these two different frames are oriented with respect to one another. Now, rotation is a bit trickier of a concept. The way we start is by taking these two frames and drawing them right on top of each other. So we ignore any differences in the position of their origins. And that's because we've already covered that with our position vector. We just want to think about these two frames right on top of each other. For this example, I've simplified it down a little bit. And so I've imagined that these two frames are in a plane. I don't need to worry about the z-axis anymore. I've just got to worry about the x and y axes. Okay, so I've got the x and y axes of the human, and then the x and y axes of the robot. There are many ways in which we can successfully represent rotation, but for robotics, one of the most common is to use a rotation matrix, and that's what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to use this letter capital R for rotation matrix. And the way we define these matrices is that we're writing these points, XR and YR, back in the human's coordinate frame. The intuition here is that once I have this matrix, and I know where my human's coordinate frame is, I can then figure out exactly where these different points are with respect to the human. Let's get started with the first column. And for this first column, I just want to write this point, XR, back in the human's coordinate frame. As a reminder, each of these vectors is a unit vector. So if you want to think about this as like the hypotenuse of a triangle, you know that it has length 1. Using some trigonometry, we can project this point back into the human's coordinate frame. I can say that this point right here is cosine theta, units along the x-axis, and it's sine theta up, units along the y-axis. So writing this as my first column, I've got cosine theta along the x-axis, sine theta along the y-axis, and that's the first column of my rotation matrix. I then repeat that process for this second point right here, which is where YR is, again, written in the human's coordinate frame. It's going to be negative sine theta, units along the x-axis, and cosine theta, units up along the y-axis. And so that's going to give me the second column of my rotation matrix. You'll notice that this rotation matrix is a 2 by 2, it's a square rotation matrix, because I'm in a two-dimensional or planar space. In general, as I move to my three-dimensional world, these rotation matrices are going to be 3 by 3. And the columns are just telling me where these different points are in the original coordinate frame. Okay, so let's take that same concept and extend it to our three-dimensional world. In general, my notation is going to be this, RAB. Capital R, just to say, hey, this is a rotation matrix. It's the rotation of coordinate frame B with respect to coordinate frame A. And the way I like to think about this is I'm standing at point A or in coordinate frame A, and I'm looking at coordinate frame B. So I'm trying to write B with respect to A. The way we think about this, or the way we define this, is that each column of this matrix is going to be another one of these axes written back in coordinate frame A. So the first column is the x-axis of frame B, written in coordinate frame A. The second column is going to be the y-axis of coordinate frame B, written in A. And finally, I'll have the z-axis of coordinate frame B, again, expressed in the elements of coordinate frame A. When you're thinking about rotation matrices, ignore any difference in the origin of these two coordinate frames. Just imagine they're right on top of each other, and you're just thinking about the differences between these different vectors. If all the vectors are aligned, like the x, y, and z axes of both coordinate frames are the exact same, it's going to be the identity matrix. Okay, let me show you an example. This is an example where I've tried to draw frame B so that it's kind of aligned with frame A. So I'm going to try to find this rotation matrix RAB. And I start off with my first column trying to find x of B written in coordinate frame A. So if I look at my frame B, you'll notice that this x of B axis is aligned with, in frame A, the y of A axis. So x of B is the exact same as y of A. And so my first column of my rotation matrix is going to be 0, 1, 0. Reminder, when you're writing the x-axis, it's 1, 0, 0. The y-axis is 0, 1, 0. And the z-axis is 0, 0, 1. So here, because the x-axis of frame B is the y-axis in frame A, I've got 0, 1, 0. Now repeating this process, this second column is going to be y of B written in frame A. Well, if I look at y of B, this vector would be equivalent to this vector over here in frame A. Well, that's moving along the negative x-axis. So I've got negative 1, 0, 0, because I'm moving along the negative x-axis. Finally, I look at my z-axis. This is going to be what I need for my third column of the rotation matrix. So the z-axis here, the z-axis in frame B, is equivalent to the z-axis in frame A. They directly match. And so I'll have 0, 0, 1 because my z-axis in frame B matches the z-axis in frame A. Okay, so here's the second example. I've kept the same frame A, and I've moved around. I've got this new frame C. Maybe you want to pause the video for a second and see if you can think about how you would define this rotation matrix from A to C. All right, maybe you got something like what we see here on the right. And I'm going through this process just like I did before. My first column, I'm going to look at the x-axis and try to write that back in frame A. So here the x-axis, well, that's directly aligned with the z-axis. So it should be 0, 0, 1. Cool. The y-axis of frame C, well, that's negative of the x-axis in frame A. So negative 1, 0, 0. Finally, the z-axis in this frame C, well, that's the negative of the y-axis in frame A. So I've got 0, negative 1, 0. And so that's how I would find this rotation matrix. Now, I want to mention a couple things before we move on. First off, you might notice that when we're in our three-dimensional world, these rotation matrices are 3 by 3 matrices. And that makes sense because we know these coordinate frames, they've got x, y, and z axes. So I'm going to need a 3 by 3 matrix to capture these x, y, and z axes and the differences between them. Second, you'll notice that the rotation matrices we found in these last two examples have a lot of 1s, 0s, and negative 1s. I want to mention that that's not that common. These two examples I picked just to reinforce the concept. But in general, your rotation matrices are going to be more like what you see right here. Sines and cosines, lots of fractions and decimals, not so much these perfect 1s and 0s like you just saw. Okay, so that's some rotation matrices and kind of how we define them for robotics. So with that in mind, I can now emphasize some of the main takeaways from this lecture. First, we start off with coordinate frames, and you attach these coordinate frames in your imagination to different objects in the world. They capture an origin, a point, and then the XYZ axes attached to that origin. We define position and rotation as the differences between these coordinate frames. Position is the difference in the origin, and rotation is the difference in the orientation, assuming that the origins are the exact same. Now, a little bit of notation. For position, it's a vector that starts off at the origin of frame A and moves to the origin of frame B and is written with respect to the axes of frame C. That's A, B, C. And again, C could be A or B, whatever you like. Now, for rotation, again, imagine that A and B, even though they don't have the same origin, imagine that they did. Like kind of think about them being right on top of each other. RAB is the axes of B just expressed in the coordinates of frame A. And that's how you're going to get your rotation matrix. Okay, so we've talked about what are coordinate frames and then how do we express position and rotation for rigid bodies. Before you move on, take a second to try to do our practice problems. You can see them in the description or in the pinned comment. As a reminder, the first page has got all the different problems to try to solve, and then the solutions are on the next pages just to make sure you understand these concepts. Once you've done those practice problems, let's move on to our next lecture. And in this next lecture, I want to talk a lot more about rotation matrices and explain some of their properties as well as how we use them in robotics. So I look forward to seeing you there.